It's almost like there's always, your goals are always looking down saying like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. If you want to do it, do it. But just so you know, it's going to take you a little bit longer. Or it's not going to happen. Or whatever.
You'll never be ignorant like that again. You'll never be able to enjoy those simple things in the same way as you did back then. And neither will I. And that's the duality and the paradox of growing and evolving is you kind of, by the time you achieve the things that you wanted, you won't value them in the same way.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another episode of Next Level University, where we help you level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed yesterday's episode. Episode number 1742. We're going to work right through this. The 3 types of clarity. The reason we're laughing is because I said something funny, and usually when we finish an episode, we shut off the audio and video, and then Alan and I will tease each other, but we left the audio and video on because we were recording back-to-back episodes. Yeah, it's a whole thing. Today, for episode number 1743, how often should you revisit your past? I wanted to talk about nostalgia in Freestyle Friday. Alan wanted to talk about classic rock and alternative rock. And then he wanted to talk about sleep and testosterone and everything under the sun. So I said, hey, can we do an episode? Can we do an episode on nostalgia? Because, number one, I think I'm probably guilty of, in the past, equating nostalgia to bad. Because we have the 5 buckets we talk about. And you can, if you want to go through those, you can as the framework, Jeff. But one of the buckets is nostalgia.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 buckets, I'll let you tell the story because I don't really know. I know how it came about. But you remember how like we had one and then Brendan Burchard and you can tell the story.
A lot of old episodes coming back. I love it. Old frameworks. And by old, I don't mean bad. They're great. So in the early days of the Hyperconscious podcast, Kevin and I did a lot of traveling. We went up and down the California coast, and we did events, and we went to Arizona and Florida and all kinds of stuff.
New Jersey.
A lot of exploring. New Jersey.
Canada.
Toronto. Yeah, we've been traveling. We used to travel a lot. And that was when we were doing in-person interviews. Before COVID, we went fully virtual after that. So, anyways, we were at a Brendan Burchard event, again, just like the last episode. I'm pretty sure we started there. And I don't know if it was the same one. Because in 2019, we did High Performance Academy, and then we did Influencer, which I think was the next year.
This one, I believe, was Arizona.
Which is Influencer?
Arizona was the first one.
Because San Diego
was the second one.
Okay.
Yeah.
So which one is the one?
The first one.
The first one, okay. All right, so in Arizona, we went to High Performance Academy. Yeah, this is turning out to be an excellent episode.
It will be. Yeah.
It is what it is. So we're in Arizona, and we're at a Brendan Burchard event, and he talked about the 3 buckets. And one of them was a growth bucket. The 2 buckets he didn't have were the ones we created, which was wisdom bucket and mentee bucket. So he did have the nostalgia bucket, he had the maintenance bucket, and he had the growth bucket. And his hypothesis was that your life will succeed to the extent that you fill the growth bucket.
Fair.
He also has an app called Growth Day. He's big into personal development. Okay, awesome. So then we fly from Arizona drive. This turned into a hell of a story.
We flew from Arizona to Boston at the end.
But wait, first we went to Steve's place.
Steve's place is in Arizona.
Okay, well then we drove from the venue to Steve's place. The infinity pool. I'm having trouble telling the story because this is a long time ago.
I kicked it to you because you're supposed to have the master memory, and you seem to have forgot. The whole thing has left you.
This has been a long day.
Yeah, for sure.
7 episodes in a row, and last week was tough. We had an event yesterday. So, all right, I got this.
Yeah.
High Performance Academy, Brendan Burchard, boom, 3 buckets.
Yep.
You've got the nostalgia bucket, the maintenance bucket, and the growth bucket.
Yeah.
Then we drive to interview a man named Steve Ryder, overlooking Arizona, Scottsdale, Arizona. Mm-hmm. And there was 3 security gates to get there. Infinity pool, big, beautiful mansion.
It was beautiful.
It was awesome. Great interview. And at the end, I talked about the buckets that Brendan talked about at the event. so excited I was learning about them. And he said, well, he's missing a bucket. I was like, what do you mean? He's the wisdom bucket. You need a bucket of people that are mentors, 10, 20, 30 years ahead of you. Like, I would consider myself in your wisdom bucket, Alan. Got it. Boom. Awesome. Then on the flight home to Boston, Kev came up with the mentee bucket because he's like, well, okay, we've got the nostalgia bucket, and I'll go through them now. The nostalgia bucket is people from your past, high school friends, kids you grew up with, that kind of thing, family. Then you've got maintenance bucket, which is you have a lot in common, but not everything, and it's certainly not into growth. And then you've got the mentee bucket, which are people that are into growth, but you're way ahead of them. Okay, so for when I first started bodybuilding with Kev, he was ahead of me. Okay, but I was ahead of him in corporate. He was ahead of me in bodybuilding, so we were in each other's mentee bucket, so to speak. Then you've got the growth bucket, which is peak performance partners. These are your peers. These are Kevin and I both in podcasting are kind of on the same level. And when I podcast with other podcasters that are new, I can tell that I can't play at the same level, although this episode is not a testament to that whatsoever.
Not indicative.
Yeah. And then the last one is the wisdom bucket, which is people that are 10, 20, 30 years ahead of you. And I had dinner every weekend, every Friday night for like a long time with a man named Dr. Robert Scott, who we interviewed for I don't remember what episode, but he was in his 70s and he was teaching me a lot. He was in my wisdom bucket. I had the CEO, I have another mentor who is the CEO of a robotics company, still, actually a different one now. But I would get dinner with him and I would ask him questions like, what's the hardest part about being a CEO? And I learned a lot. I learned a ton from the wisdom bucket. But now the point is that we called the nostalgia bucket. I guess it was Brendan Burchard who did. And I think that we have an association with the nostalgia bucket that maybe is less positive than maybe it should be.
I would say that's accurate because even when we talk about it, we talk about how you're going back to old world and you're kind of going back to a world that no longer serves you, but you're going back to visit people that you maybe miss. And my thought was, so this came because I went down to Alan's and then we went to our Next Level Hope Foundation event. And when I go down to Uxbridge, I usually plan for like an extra 10 or 15 minutes, and I'll just drive around town. I'll drive by the middle school, and I'll drive by the elementary school, and I'll drive by the baseball fields and all that stuff. And it always, I don't know, it like inspires me, but it makes me sad too, but also fires me up. And I don't know what.
All those emotions.
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know. I mean, the last time I was driving around there was the last time I felt lost. The last time, when I last lived in Uxbridge, it's when I had just broken up with one of my partners and I moved in with family friends when I was like staying in that bedroom. And then from there, I got my own place. I ended up getting my own place, and then I ended up moving to New Hampshire.
So why? So it inspired you. The emotions you said was I was inspired, but also sad, but also what?
Fired up.
Fired up. Okay. Let's go through each. What inspires you about it? Because there's the value of nostalgia right there. I mean,
yeah, I think it's super valuable. But I think it's important to figure out what it is, what's underneath it. So I appreciate that.
And the reason why we associate the nostalgia bucket as maybe more negative or less constructive is because usually that's the bucket that's too full.
Yeah.
And now that we have so much wisdom bucket and growth bucket and mentee bucket, for us it might actually be not enough in the maintenance and nostalgia.
There's very little nostalgia bucket. Yep. Very, very, very little, which is great. It's by design. It's by design. But what was the first one that I said? Fired up?
Inspired.
Inspired.
You said inspired, sad, and fired up.
Inspired because when you go back to where this whole thing started, everything seems a little bit smaller and everything seems a little bit more simple. And I was driving by people's houses and it was like that person went down a really dangerous path, and I don't even know what they're doing. I don't know where they are. I don't know what they're up to. A lot of people I knew people that I dated, good friends of mine, people that I just knew of, a lot of them went in very different paths. And it just inspires me that we didn't, and other people didn't. But that, just going back to where this all started and remembering how insignificant I felt and remembering how hopeless I felt and remembering all the mistakes I made, I mean, it's always going to be a big piece of who I am. And like driving through the center of town and just seeing the town square, and like the bank I used to go to, the Subway that I used to go to, Harry's Pizza that I used to go to. It just reminds me of
Harry's Pizza, man. Still great.
Yeah, it just reminds me of all that stuff. So I think the inspiration is because I never thought I was going to evolve into anything, and now when I go back there, it's like, oh, you've come a long way since you were living here. That.
Okay, so that's inspired. Next would be sad. This one might be hard for you, but I think it's important.
I think it just brings up all the old feelings of not enoughness. Driving by the schools that I used to go to, like that, and just remembering how, again, Alan and I's high school experiences were different, but driving by the old high school, like I remember just feeling like an outsider. We were joking recently about going to lunch and just hoping someone that you knew was at the same lunch as you, so you didn't have to sit at the table by yourself. That. High school, I felt like a giant loser in high school.
Same.
I felt like a giant loser.
Until senior year, I didn't feel that way at all. But I would say freshman and sophomore for sure. Junior and senior, I felt like I really came out of my shell again. But yeah, freshman and sophomore year for me were just awful years at home, and in high school were awful. Yeah. They were dark. And again, not dark, but they were they were pretty bad. Yeah, they were pretty bad. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. Yeah, at home and it wasn't good. It was not a fan. Not a fan.
Well, don't get any of that when you drive around?
I do. I definitely do. When I go on other shows, this is actually really hard for me, but I have to have courage, so I'm just going to understand that this is a blanket statement, but I playfully refer to where Kevin and I grew up as the Boulevard of Broken Dreams. It's a small town and it's a small-minded town. And again, relative to where we are now and the way we think now. I'm not trying to be unkind, but I also can't dance around my truth. My truth is we grew up in a small-minded town. And it's a small town, and that's okay. I'm not I think there's a lot of really good things. I think Uxbridge is gorgeous.
It is.
The forest that I live in, I mean, dude, there's some places around here. We did a photo shoot. So for anyone listening who does also listen to Conscious Couples podcast, Emilia is working on a new intro, outro, and midtro because the old one is literally us talking from a teleprompter. It might as well be. It was, hi, welcome to the Conscious Couples podcast. We are together, and we want you to be together too. I'm joking. That's not actually what it is. But it's brutal, especially on YouTube. We're looking like not at all at the camera. Just rookies. But anyways, so she's redoing it, and we did this photo shoot that's gorgeous. I mean, that's in Uxbridge, the place that we were. When you see this forest and some of the B-roll that we got, that's in Uxbridge. When Emilia first found this house, this condo, we're in a beautiful condo complex. I'm so grateful. It's unbelievable here. But I remember being like, yep, that's the spot. We're in our own. I actually was showing Christina, our COO, because we did the whole Google Earth thing. Kev's like, oh, so this is what you do on the chief officer's calls without me. I went to Google Earth and saw her where she lives. I do this often, actually, not only with clients and team members, but I like to see, you can literally just use Google Earth and go and look at someone's house. I mean, it's a little bit alarming and also awesome. And so we showed each other context because they hear stories about where I grew up and the town I'm in. And so now they get context to it. So it's, anyways, when Emilia first showed the home, when we were looking at homes, I was like, yep, that's the spot. It's far enough away to where we are in the forest and have solitude, where it's not city and it's beautiful forest. It's the quarries is wonderful, but it's close enough to the highway where we're right smack dab in the middle of Worcester and Providence. So we can, I mean, there's a lot you can do here. It's great. And I'm a big fan of New England anyway, even though a lot of people hate the winter. I actually like it. But anyways, so why was I talking about that? Yeah, so it's very challenging to share your truth without offending anyone. My truth is, it is a small town with mostly a small-minded town. Now, I also love and appreciate my upbringing in so many regards too. Like, some of the teachers were unbelievable. Some of them were not. Some of the role models were good. Some of them were definitely not. And everything's different based on the perspective. So all of us who have gone back to our high school or have gone back to our old home, I mean, even when you and I fished a couple Father's Days ago at the home I grew up in, I mean, it felt smaller to me too. Yeah. It's also gorgeous, though. It's beautiful.
I think I miss it. I think I miss it. I think that's one of the reasons I'm sad, is because I miss it.
You miss the simpler times.
I miss the simpler times. Life used to be it used to be more challenging in many ways, but it used to be easier in other ways too.
Definitely.
And I think I have that. It's like, oh yeah, I remember I drove by my first serious girlfriend's house. I didn't this time. The last time I came down. And I used to be over there all the time, and we would jump on the trampoline in the back, and we would have fires, and the dogs would be outside. And it was just like, I remember me and my friends would literally just go for rides. There would be 5 of us in 5 cars just driving around the town, just wasting gas. Because that's just what we did.
Yeah, when you first get your license, it's such a thing.
And that's where I lived when I first got a lot of my firsts happened there. First job, all of it. First job, first girlfriend, all of that stuff. First car. All of that stuff happened there.
Virginity.
Right, yes, that is also the first podcast episode ever. It wasn't in Uxbridge, but it was close.
My man Danny G?
No, that was in New Hampshire. No, the YouTube. Remember when I was on your YouTube channel? That was in Milford.
Oh,
that's only 10 minutes away, so I connect that to Uxbridge.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I think it gives me all of those things because it brings me back to a simpler time. Next Level Nation, what is happening? If you've thought to yourself, I want to try coaching, but you don't really know where to start, group coaching would be a wonderful place for you. That's really why we created it in the first place. We start a new round every 90 days. So if you're hearing this, go to the website, nextleveluniverse.com, and we have the landing page where you can actually hold your spot right now. Even if there's a group going on right now, you can still lock your spot for the next one. The biggest thing that we've seen is as we get closer and closer to the date, unfortunately, some people end up missing. The group fills up and they can't do it, and then they end up regretting that. So please head over to the website. The link will be in the show notes, and we would love to see you there.
So when you say sad, because it makes me sad too, everything's opposite for Kevin and I. That's why it's so cool to learn both ends of everything. For me, it's sad because I'm sad for the people who get stuck there and who will never experience what we've experienced. That makes me sad. For you, it's sad. It makes you sad that you'll never have simpler times again.
I won't say never, but yeah.
I mean, you never will.
It's the pressure is more.
I talked to you about a book called Flowers for Algernon. I'll go quick with this. But they give... We've been watching the Planet of the Apes movies, the newest ones, and they essentially are trying to cure Alzheimer's. And they end up creating this virus that improves brain function, and that apes end up getting smarter. It's a whole thing. They're actually phenomenal films. Like you want to talk about a movie that sounds dumb that's actually magnificent. This is the one. These are great. But anyway, so we just finished the whole first trilogy, and there's another trilogy we saw the first one, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes. I think it's still in theaters actually. It's awesome, in my opinion. But anyways, so the book Flowers for Algernon is essentially a book that's written in the first person from someone who's mentally challenged. I don't know if that's the proper term.
Developmental disability is usually the one.
Cognitively, developmental disability. Okay. So, and then they are given a drug that makes them smarter over time. And it's such a fascinating study. It's hard to read because it's written terribly at first. and then it gets better over time. But it's kind of like a journal entry book of as Algernon gets smarter and smarter and smarter, he realizes that all of the people that he thought he was having fun with were actually making fun of him. It's the ignorance is bliss thing. You'll never be ignorant like that again. You'll never be able to enjoy those simple things in the same way as you did back then, and neither will I. And that's the duality of, and the paradox of growing and evolving, is you kind of, by the time you achieve the things that you wanted, you won't value them in the same way. You'll still value them, but you won't value them in the same way. I wanted to talk about this quickly because I told Kev this is about nostalgia, and it's very in alignment, because I remember it was a couple nights ago last week. So it was last week, 4 or 5 nights ago, maybe this week. But I went in Emilia's office and I said, because it was a me date, and I said, I just want to talk to you about this. It's weird. I'm going to go back and watch. I didn't want her to come into my office and see some naked girl on my screen because that's just ridiculous. So I watched American Pie again. And it came out in 1999, and many of you listening will recognize that. Many of you won't, because it's just a stupid movie. But when I was a kid, I watched that movie, and I remember my best friend at the time's dad said, you should not be watching that movie. And now I get his perspective, because my sister was 3 years older, and honestly, even she shouldn't have been watching it probably. And so I needed to go back. I told Kevin this behind the scenes. I said, I have to go back and I need to rewatch the movie so that I can understand what was influencing me back then. Is it racist? Is it sexist? Is it alarming? Like, what was influencing me? And I remember watching the movie, and I told Kev, I said, it wasn't actually as bad as I thought it was going to be. It was still probably for an 11-year-old not great. Okay. But and I said this to Kevin, this is just my truth, and again, please don't villainize me for this, but the girls are not nearly as hot as I thought they were when I was a kid. When I was a kid, those girls were like the unattainable, oh my God, these are, and quite frankly, I consider Emilia far more attractive than anyone in that movie, by far. And that's my life now, and I'm so grateful. But will I ever value these things that I've achieved in the exact same way as I did back when I first dreamed them up? And the answer is no. I mean, dude, if I had told you when you were 15 years old, hey, you're going to be making $400,000 a year with Alan Lazaros in your own business, right? $500,000 coming up on it. You'd be like, oh my God, that would be unbelievable. And the truth is, it is unbelievable.
Yeah, for sure.
But it's not what you thought it was going to be.
Well, I don't think anything is.
That's kind of my point.
Yeah, I don't think anything is. I think that's the reason I like Sunday so much, is because it's light. It's not, you have to be here at this time in this moment for this amount of time. It's like, I love Sundays. I love Mondays too. But I love Sundays because it's different.
Yeah, and that goes into the responsibility thing. Like, you and I have taken not only responsibility for our own life, but responsibility for our family, and then responsibility for our extended family in some extents, and then responsibility for the NLU company, NLU team, NLU community, and responsible for changing the world in our own unique way. And that is heavy as hell.
That is heavy.
But that's how you grow and evolve. And so if you can reorient yourself, and I heard a quote recently that I thought was really powerful, which is, how do you aim at the highest possible good that you can achieve, and then reorient your entire life toward that greater good, and take on the responsibility in advance for doing that? And there's nothing better you can do with your life. Now, again, that is what I believe to be true. I do believe fulfillment comes from doing all you can with all you have toward a meaningful thing. I think most people are fulfilled achieving meaningful progress toward meaningful goals for a meaningful purpose. You know, this episode is one pebble toward a milestone, toward a goal, toward a dream, and the purpose underneath it, right? So it's meaningful progress toward a meaningful goal, toward a meaningful purpose. And the meaningful purpose is help people improve their lives and become more successful and fulfilled. Because if everyone's more successful and fulfilled and has higher self-belief and self-worth, the whole world becomes a better place, because fulfilled people typically, I've never seen a fulfilled person go out of their way to hurt other people. And I do believe that's the root cause of all human suffering, is people that are deeply unfulfilled. But of course, that's my own unique perspective, and that's the mission you and I are on. And so, dude, it's hard for me to go back to movies like that. And I literally walked into Emilia's office 20 minutes in saying, I don't even want a me date. I don't want to watch this damn movie anymore. I want to hang out with you. And can I really go back and enjoy it the same way? And maybe it's different for you. Maybe you actually do like to do that more.
No,
I don't know.
I don't like to. No. There was a big to-do about a show on Netflix that's supposed to be super funny, and the comedian Shane Gillis, he's a very big comedian. And I was like, I'll give it a shot. Let me see. And it's like, no, I can't.
It sucks, man. Yeah.
I feel dirty. And again, if you watch it, you like it, shout out to you. That's good. Good for you. It's just not my cup of tea anymore. One of my favorite shows of all time it's not. I don't think I could ever watch it again. Is Eastbound and Down. And so many of the quotes that the funny quotes that I have come from that movie. Come from that series. But it is just too low vibe. I just feel dirty.
Yeah. It's a bad influence.
Yes, I would say so. And
unfortunately, a lot of comedy, it's hard to get a good comedy that's not
100%
low vibe.
100%. Yeah. If you, again, I listen to certain music that I'm sure is not a great influence, so you do you.
Yeah.
It's just not my cup of tea anymore. And I think that is the beauty of going back to the previous episode, clarity and being more specific and having less options. Is when you have less options, you have to really... I will never stop watching mixed martial arts, ever. If I can have my way, I will never, ever, ever stop watching mixed martial arts. But if you said you had to pick between, okay, well, that means you're never going to play video games again. Cool, take them away. That's fine. Mixed martial arts is the thing. You know, that's my R&R, mixed martial arts. You can never watch movies again. Whatever, can them. Mixed martial arts. I want to watch mixed martial arts. But I think that just comes from more simplicity, and more simplicity usually comes from less options, and less options come from lack of time, lack of extra time.
I know we got to jump,
yeah,
but my alarm just went off. I know you got to go because you got to travel tomorrow,
bright and early,
and you want to make sure you have quality time with Taryn before travel. So
that I do.
Very important.
And burgers, quality time and burgers,
also burgers. For someone who, how do I say this? For someone who didn't... Okay, I'm just going to say this. Kev wanted big goals, but didn't know the level of responsibility it was going to take to achieve them.
Fair.
You can't say, hey, I want to be a multimillionaire and then hang out at the beach. You have to take the responsibility for the metrics, habits, tools, tasks, systems, choices, skills, values, resources, awareness, beliefs, environments, and influences, standards, and potential. You can't achieve a new goal without setting a new standard. And you can't set a new standard unless you take responsibility for whatever it takes within your character to get there. Within your character, that's the key, right? Mm-hmm. Doing whatever it takes is actually easy compared to staying in integrity to do it, which is why I talked about that story of stealing sunglasses. I didn't want to talk about that. I just need to because it's important to know that there are always shortcuts that are never going to fulfill you.
For sure.
And that's just a lesson we all have to learn. And I had to learn that too. So anyways, as someone who set these huge results goals, I mean, you've set really big results goals. I mean, first it was 2 million, then it was 70 million. It just up. And net worth goals and wealth and want your own movie theater. You want to, need a car that's $250,000 or whatever it is. That's not normal, statistically speaking. I used to think it was. Now I'm less ignorant. Can you explain the responsibility that comes with that? Because I wonder if people would choose differently if they understood this whole ignorance is bliss versus evolution versus nostalgia versus responsibility thing.
I mean, I think it's just a conversation of how much are you going to have to trade in order to get what you really want. And that's really what it is. And again, this isn't a bad thing. This is what it takes, right? This is what I signed up for. If I ever decide I don't want this, I'll talk to Alan and I'll make a different decision, but I don't anticipate that day ever happening. You just have to understand that if you want results that aren't typical, your life is not going to be typical. And you're not going to be able to make typical decisions and do typical things. And when I say typical, I'm not speaking down to those, but yeah, I don't go to bachelor parties. I don't really do anything other than podcast, speak, coach, spend time with Taryn, and then spend time with our family. But that's...
Minus a couple of the rager weekends you've been
Yeah,
enjoying.
yeah, I've had a couple of those.
Just for the listeners, they're like, well, I don't know.
Yeah, yeah.
What
If
episode was it?
if you just started listening, you probably think I party all the time. Those are like the two times
Put
in the
down
past.
a quick 12er.
Yeah,
You know,
the two
that's
times in
funny.
the past X amount of years. But here's the truth, though: I shouldn't be doing that. Not if it was just about business success. That's a mistake.
Yeah.
That's a mistake. That's the hard part. Is there is always, it's almost like there's always your goals are always looking down, saying like, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. If you want to do it, do it. But just so you know, it's going to take you a little bit longer, or it's not going to happen, or whatever. This is the analogy I always used to use. Nobody cares if you cheat on your diet. Nobody cares.
If anything, they actually like you more when you do.
Yeah.
Seriously. That's like a thing.
I used to tell people all the time when I was much more into fitness and doing shows, of people would ask me for advice. And they'd say, like, I have a birthday coming up and it's really important to me that I be there. And I would literally say this. Right now, this is the exercise and caloric regimen you're on. Are you okay with getting to your goals later? Because
later meaning more time. It taking more time.
Yes. It will take you an extra week, hypothetically, if you want to do this, this, and this. If so, go ahead. If not, stick to the plan.
Yep, that's fine.
And it was always, so it's the same thing. I think it's the same thing. In some weird land that doesn't exist, that is filled with unicorns and rainbows and pots of gold, you can accomplish all of your goals by sitting around doing nothing. That's not real life. And I can tell you, I've worked with a lot of people who it looks like that's what they're doing. And it looks like they're getting really, really good results. They have someone who is paying the bills.
Yep.
Just so you know. Every time. Oh, yeah, my partner makes really good money. Oh, okay. That makes sense. That's why we're just hanging out and your content is always you hanging out and doing nothing. Okay, cool. That's not going to set you up for success, though.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if I could eloquently answer the question other than the fact that you have to be willing to trade in a lot of things that other people won't be willing to trade in because they don't want what you want. And that's okay.
The three emotions at the beginning that you said were, I'm like pointing this at you. Sorry? Pointing my pen at Kev. The three things. It was inspired.
Yes.
It was sad, and then it was fired up. What makes you fired up about going back? The nostalgia bucket?
I don't know. I have this like deep-seated, probably not real, and maybe partly real, but I'll explain it, that nobody
Believed in you.
Believed in me. Yeah. When I don't think that's fully true, I do believe I was the biggest thing holding me back. I do. I know, because there was a lot of people that always would say they believed in me.
There was people who thought you'd turn into nothing, though, who didn't give you the time of day, who didn't put respect on it.
Yeah, but I think it's less than most. When you hear most people's stories, it's like, I couldn't catch a break. Nobody gave me any chances and nobody believed in me. And I don't think that was the case.
I think it's fair. And again, this is just my perspective, so I need to say that. I would say it has been interesting for Kevin and I to be on this journey. There are certain people who value him a lot more than me. And there are certain people who value me a lot more than him. And I would say, statistically speaking, with many exceptions, the people who are more successful externally tend to value me more.
Yeah.
And the people who are more emotionally driven, heart-driven, tend to value Kevin more. And I don't think it's because I'm not heart-driven, and I don't think it's because Kevin's not successful. I think it's because we fit the mold. I fit the mold, quote-unquote, of the credentialed professional more than Kev.
Yep.
And Kev fits the mold of the humble underdog more than me. Even though both of us are definitely both. But I think it's been a fascinating study as my observer and scientist has been witnessing that. So I think there's truth to that. Dude, I've watched people look down on you for sure. Especially successful people. I've watched them write you off
Yeah.
Whether you're even aware of it or not, trust me, some people wrote you out. Oh, yeah, okay.
Well, if I
yeah.
wasn't aware of it, I don't know if it would have bothered. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
genuinely...
I think energetically you can feel that, though.
Maybe. I always say on other podcasts, like, I feel like I was the biggest thing that held me back.
I mean, we all are, right? But
yeah, I think more
I
so than
don't
others.
think people went out of their way to bet on Kev. I mean, seriously.
No, but I don't think people went out of their way not to.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think they were trying to tear you down either.
Yeah, well,
right?
Why
I tear down an underdog, right? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think
I feel like
went
I
out
was
of their
torn
way.
down more, but I also think a lot of people believed in me. Right?
Yes, yeah. So that's all I'm saying is I don't think I had a rallying troop of people who believed in me, but I also don't think I had a bunch of people who were chasing me saying you're never gonna be anything.
Yeah.
So that fires me up, even though I don't know if it's real. It's like F you town, I'll prove you wrong, baby. You know, how dare you? Put some respect
if
on
an
it.
investor came in to Uxbridge High School back in 2007 at our graduation, and they said, "I want 10% of the success of that kid, Kevin Palmieri." Yeah, my man. I doubt that investor would have done that.
Well,
right? They probably would have picked the valedictorian.
Somewhat accurate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's somebody who can look at a stock and know.
Yeah.
I know this company looks like a pile of dirt, but I see
invested.
big things. You did,
Alan. I was that investor.
You were that investor. Unfortunately for you, you get very little of me. Really, in the grand scheme of things, it's like I think I got off better in that than you did.
Well, there's the lesson. I invested in me first.
Yeah.
And then I invested in Kev second. So
it's the way to do it.
And it worked out very well so far.
So far, so good. Nostalgia. What an interesting thing. I like it.
I love that we came from the same town.
Same.
I love that we both didn't have fathers. I love that we are becoming the male role models that we wish we had. I love that this has all worked out the way that it has. And by worked out, I mean I am grateful that through massive amounts of time, effort, and failure, we have created something of real meaning and value. I'm very grateful.
Likewise, my friend. Likewise. Next Level Nation. Explore your nostalgia, whatever that means. We have a private Facebook group if you're looking for like-minded individuals who are into growth. Again, I know a lot of people don't get self-improvement. They think it's weird. They think, I don't know. They think self-help is a weird thing. I don't, taboo, whatever. Shout out to you for doing it because you're going to be a better person because of it. So we have a Facebook group that's all about that. If you would be so kind to leave us a review, we would appreciate that very much on whatever podcast platform you are listening on. And make sure, as always, you subscribe so you never miss an opportunity to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. Subscribe on YouTube. Subscribe on whatever podcast platform you are listening to us on.
If you've not read the blog number 18 on my LinkedIn, it's gotten some good love. It's about how to create a magnificent career that you adore, and it's very much about looking at your past from the frame of what fulfills you, what you're really good at, and what makes good money, and finding the center point of that. So check that out. The link will be in the show notes.
As always, we love you. We appreciate you. Grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans. We have family. We will talk to you all tomorrow.
Learn from your past. Next Level Nation.